Hi everybody. It's a beautiful day here in quarantine land. Daisy and I are really excited about this next video, which is winning singles strategies. Hopefully when you get on the singles court, you have clarity in what you're doing. But if you don't, hopefully this will help. Also, at the end of this video, we will have a little doubles tip. So if you only play doubles or you want a doubles tip, stick around. Number one is hit your forehands and backhands from the baseline cross court. You need to own this skill, and it may seem obvious, but it's crucially important, and here's why. First, I want to clarify that cross court means hitting the ball diagonally. I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page when we talk about this skill. It's all about risk management. There's more space cross court, about 4.5 feet, therefore less space down the line, so you're more likely to hit the ball long. It's easier to get the ball over the net at the center strap, so you can see here in this diagram, circled in red, the lowest part of the net is in the middle, which is 3 feet. At the net post circled in purple, it's 6 inches higher than in the middle. I put an arrow where the single sideline is, and that is 40 inches, so 4 inches higher at that point. It's a higher obstacle to deal with, so higher the risk. So play the percentages, more court and more margin for error. Number two, height over the net is crucial. Not just over the net, but high over the net. As I mentioned before, risk management is key. So if you aim high over the net and hit the ball lower than planned, it will still go over the net. Hit the ball high, especially with topspin. Your shot will hit the ground at a steep angle and bounce up at a steep angle, forcing your opponent to hit a shot above their ideal strike zone. Also, higher over the net equals deeper. The deeper in the court your opponent is when they hit the ball, the more time you have to react to their shot, and the harder it is for your opponent to hit the ball deep themselves. Lastly, let's talk about perception versus reality. What is a good shot? I hear this all the time. Jim, a hard and low shot is a better shot. Well, don't take it from me. Take it from the pros. You can see here in this picture that Federer and Nadal are very excited because they know the statistics. Federer hits the ball 3.5 feet over the net on his average ground stroke, and Nadal here 4.5 feet. That gives them so much more margin for error, and they just hit the ball deeper, as I said. Third, when your opponent has hit you a short or attackable ball, drive that ball down the line. When your opponent hits you a short ball, you are now in attack mode. It's time to get aggressive. It's time to reduce the amount of time your opponent has to react to your shot, and in many cases get to the net. The less time your opponent has to react to your shot, the more stress and pressure they will feel, and they'll be less likely to hit a good reply. Additionally, when you get up to the net, you will be on the correct side of the court and in better volleying position to make a good volley. The rule is you want to be positioned on the same side of the court from which your opponent is hitting the ball. You have to cross over to the other side of the single sideline if you hit your approach shot cross court. Lastly, you just make sure that you take care of those down the line shots, especially if you're hitting it off a shot that came from the cross court. It is very common to miss change of direction shots, which are challenging shots. Those misses tend to be wide, so give yourself good margin for error from the single sideline. 4. Hit your strongest shots as much as possible to your opponent's weaknesses. This might seem simple, but there's a lot to it. First things first, you need to dictate the point if you plan on executing your strengths and playing to your opponent's weakness. How do you do this? A couple things come to mind. How about a strong first serve that gives you a shorter ball, or a really good return of serve that you hit deep so they're not on the offensive? Second, you can't hit your strengths to their weaknesses if you are unaware of your strengths or your opponent's weaknesses. So hopefully
You'll get to feel real quickly in the warm up what feels good about your game that day. And hopefully, you'll know that in advance and be aware of your strengths. Things can change from match to match and day to day, so it's good to check in about that. Most importantly, use that warm up to get an idea of what your opponent is good at and what they struggle with. You'll be surprised how much you can learn just from the warm up. And then once you get into the match, you'll continue to learn about what your opponent likes to hit and what they don't like to hit. One quick tip: if your opponent runs around their backhand and hits a forehand, that's a pretty good clue that their backhand is weaker. Or maybe they miss a bunch of overheads in the warm up. This is a good clue that you want to lob them when they come to the net early in the match and see if, in fact, they have a weak overhead. We need to be learning in these matches about ourselves and our opponents all the time. Put yourself in a position in which you will hit your best shot. For example, if you are righty and you want to hit a forehand and you are returning serve in the ad court, move over toward the doubles alley so that they have less space to serve to your backhand and therefore you can hit a forehand. You can do this well before they hit their serve, or move after your opponent tosses the ball in the air so they can't see your new position. Either way, how you make adjustments where you stand can make a big difference. Lastly, directional intent means, where am I trying to hit the ball? It seems so simple. My question is always, are you clear where you are planning to hit the ball as you go to hit the ball? Lots of times we hit the ball without any real plan, without clarity. You will not be able to execute this strategy if you don't have clarity.
The fifth, and probably the most important concept, is limiting your unforced errors, something that for most of us is extremely hard to do.
My college coach used to say to me, just don't miss. I thought he was crazy at the time, but his point was to keep the ball in play and be smart about managing your risk. Nobody wants to miss. The question is, when you start to make unforced errors, what adjustments do you make? I find that many of us are not even aware that we're losing because we're just making errors. If you don't know what's going on, it's very hard to fix. So always have a sense of how you are winning and losing points. If they are winning the points because of your errors, there are things you can do. Change things. Hit the ball high over the net so you won't make errors in the net. Hit the ball more cross court so you're reducing the risk of making an error. Reduce the pace of your shots or just aim from the middle of the court for a while to get your rhythm back. Adjustments within a match are crucial. Lastly, always ask yourself this question: do I know how many balls my opponent has to hit before he or she misses? If you're losing and you haven't answered that question or even asked that question, you're on the wrong track. If you're only making your opponent hit 3 shots per point and then they're making an error, make a goal of hitting 4 or more balls over the net and see if your opponent can still keep the ball in play. There's always a breaking point for everyone, and you just have to find out what that is for your opponent.
Our sixth winning single strategy is mix up your strategies. There are a lot of different things you can do that can throw your opponent off.
The first question is, do you know your opponent's game? Do they do a lot of things well or only do one thing well? There are ways to change your game and how you approach the match to drive your opponent crazy. Sometimes, if you're struggling, slow down the pace of play. Take more time between points and on changeovers. Instead of rushing, go slower. If you play an opponent who hits the ball hard, throw in some loopy high balls and see how they handle them. You might be surprised how much this throws them off. Additionally, change the spin on your strokes. Increase the topspin on your forehand, or slice your backhand, or even throw in a drop shot. Just remember, some players love pace and others don't. You might be surprised to find out that the most difficult balls for your opponent to handle are the slower ones. You won't know until you try. All right, let's review the 6 winning single strategies to get you to another level when you get back on the courts. Number 1, manage your risk. Hit the ball cross court. You have 4.5 more feet cross court than down the line. Number 2, The net is your first obstacle. Height over the net keeps you from hitting the net, takes your opponent out of their comfortable hitting zone, and pushes them back. Number 3, attack. Take your opponent's short balls and hit them down the line. It gives your opponent less time to react, puts pressure on them, and you get in better volley position at the net. Number 4, take control of the points. Identify your strengths and your opponent's weaknesses and position yourself for success. Number 5, reduce your unforced errors. Be aware of what's happening. Make adjustments to keep more balls in play. And number 6, throw your opponent off by mixing up your pace of play and your shots with different heights, speeds, and spins.
Now the moment all you doubles players have been waiting for, a doubles tip just for you.
So when you're playing doubles, especially when you're in the one up and one back position, hit the ball deep cross court. It seems so obvious, but it's so incredibly important. If you hit the ball deep cross court and away from the net person, you'll push your opponent back, especially if you hit the ball with some pace and depth. Your opponent is much more likely to hit the ball down the line by hitting the ball late or just being in an emergency situation and just trying to get the ball back, and your partner at the net can easily put those away. Additionally, this gives your partner at the net more time to react to your opponent's shot because they're further away from you, and allows your partner to poach and put more balls away. Just like in singles, if you can work on your high, deep cross-court ground strokes, you'll find that your partner will be really happy with you, and you'll be winning a lot more matches on the doubles court.
Tennis should be fun and should make you happy and put a smile on your face if you follow these winning strategies when you're playing singles when we get back out on the court. Be safe, and we'll see you next time.